Welcome back. We are SISociety, a global community and movement that fearlessly explores taboos around our sensuality, intimacy, and sexuality. And this is Taboo Talks, a weekly conversation where we dive in with leading minds in order to bring shadow to light. And before we continue on this juicy journey towards reclamation of pleasure through sex magic, I want to pass the baton to Heather, who has an exciting message to share for us.
Thank you, Elfina. Speaking of juicy, we have a short and delicious message from one of our affiliates. And by the way, messages like this make this show possible. So thank you so much in advance for listening. And we're really grateful that you're here with us. It's time to unleash your inner goddess with the S Factor 6-month Strip and Rise program, starting this September 7th. This isn't just another course. It's a loving invitation to reclaim your sexuality, confidence, and passion. With Sheila Kelly guiding you, you'll transform not just your life, but also your love and relationships. And absolutely no experience is needed. So just dive on in, just a heart that is ready to rise. If this resonates with you and you feel curious to learn more, then feel free to head over to sfactor.com, or you can check the show notes to secure your spot. Please use code IMPACT250, IMPACT250 for $250 off. And remember, this opportunity only comes once a year, and your journey to infinite pleasure and embodied power begins now. Now back to our regular scheduled content.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I'm really excited that they're an affiliate marketer of ours. Like, how aligned is that? So, yeah, without further ado, let's dive into this episode and explore the powerful intersections of sex magic and transformational kink. We're going to be uncovering how both of these practices can be used to harness our erotic energy for personal empowerment and spiritual growth. And guiding us today in this journey of pleasure, power, and ritual magic is Kelly Klein, aka Dr. Revel Bell, the Divinatrix. Kelly is a somatic intimacy and relationship coach, filmmaker, dancer, and transformational kink practitioner with a mission to facilitate erotic liberation on the planet. Woo! Yes, and I was so excited to have Kelly on. She is recently in this incredible, erotic, really moving film called Magdalene Remembered, which I'm sure we'll get into. And seeing her just full goddess, priestess embodiment in that movie, I just was like so drawn to have you on the show, Kelly. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. I love what you all are doing here, and happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. So yeah, I would love to just dive right in because I know that you said that transformational kink and how it relates to sex magic. And I'd love to just hear a little bit more about both of those things and how they really pair together so well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know y'all have been exploring sex magic, but broadly with sex magic, we set a specific intention, something that we're trying to call in or release or experience in the encounter. And this can happen solo, it can happen partnered, it can happen in a group. But the most important part is that we are setting an intention or a prayer, and then we're cultivating erotic energy in the body, which helps actually kind of thin the veil between this kind of physical dense realm and the more, you could say, spiritual or etheric realm. If that's maybe a spiritual way of thinking about it, in the brain level, it's actually kind of allowing the conscious and the unconscious mind to communicate more, because in our unconscious, that's where we have connection to the infinite. It's where we have connection to the collective unconsciousness and collective consciousness. So it's really the realm where magic can happen. So by cultivating erotic energy, which is really just life force energy, it's the same energy, and allowing that to flow more fully through the body, our prayers can be heard and our intentions can be set kind of on that metaphysical plane. So again, there's like a scientific way of thinking about this, there's a spiritual way, and they weave together so beautifully. So we set our intention, we get into our erotic play, we let that take us wherever it does, again, either with ourselves or with others. And then we dedicate that energy to whatever our intention and our prayer is, whether that happens with an orgasm or without an orgasm. Some people have different ideas about that being necessary or not. I don't believe it is. I feel like that my experience has been that just the raising of that energy and the directing of it to that focus point can create really magical ripples, and that's where we can do magic in our lives. So that's kind of sex magic broadly. And I also like to think about it as it's like our ego consciousness can kind of align, or maybe our individual consciousness can align with our subconscious. So oftentimes we have subconscious programming that we're not even aware of, things that are driving our life, that maybe this is coming up in patterns of things that your conscious mind is thinking, I don't like this, I don't want this, I want to manifest something different. But as long as you have that part of you that's actually trying to manifest that thing, you're going to have it. They say that having is evidence of wanting. I don't know if you've explored existential kink at all, but that's another topic.
I love that book so much. It's
so
changing
good.
my whole reality. I'm like, I have to read it like slowly because it's codes on codes.
It is. It takes a while to really land in the body. But yeah, I found that to be super transformational. So when we're in sex magic and when we have that erotic energy moving through us, we actually have an opportunity to align our conscious and our unconscious mind to maybe work through some of those subconscious patterns so that we can be free of them, because they really do rule our lives in a lot of ways that we don't even understand, in very mystical ways. So again, that's kind of sex magic broadly. And transformational kink is almost doing exactly the same thing, but with a broader toolbox. Oftentimes we think of sex magic as maybe sex between two people with intercourse or self-pleasure. But with transformational kink, we can use the tools of BDSM and kink, which broadly, as they appear in transformational kink, are role play, sensation play, and power exchange. And it can be any combination of those things. So whatever you're meeting in a transformational kink scene, it's not just like you might be flogging. It might look a lot like a traditional kind of flogging or BDSM scene, but the intention is really what matters. We're here for transformation, not just to have a fun, sexy experience, although it can be that too. So with transformational kink, there's a lot of preparatory work. Usually, so as a practitioner, I'll work with somebody generally in a few sessions where we're talking, either in person or over Zoom, where we dive into their history, what's going on in their life, what patterns are showing up, what's ready to be transformed, what do they want, kind of where are they and where do they want to be, helping them vision into the future that they want for themselves and for the world, because this can be really deep collective work. As well as individual. So I spend a lot of time getting to know my client, and we come up with, oftentimes some kind of intention will emerge. Maybe it's clear that they already have something that they're wanting to work on, or in talking through what's going on for them, we can come up with an energy that's ready to be transformed. And from there, a scene often constructs itself. So in the kind of preparatory sessions, I'll do kind of hypnotherapy type experiences based on parts work, thinking about the different parts of the different parts of the self, and allowing the different parts of the self to communicate with one another, to scaffold maybe some parts of the self that we want to be there that maybe aren't as strong, like a higher spiritual self or a protector, or a nurturer. Oftentimes our inner nurturers are not very well developed. We don't spend a lot of time learning how to nurture ourselves. So we kind of scaffold these parts through inward journeys where we're using imagination and kind of an inward spiritual journey to allow some of these parts to be known. Sometimes there's parts of us that again, maybe one of those subconscious parts that are ruling our lives. Like just the other day, I discovered a part of my inner child that has been very present and kind of screaming for attention and like wanting to be right. And so we get to find those parts of ourselves that we often have disowned or don't recognize, and allow them to be held maybe by the inner nurturer, or to meet the higher self and to get some guidance there. So there's a lot of inner preparatory work that happens. And then from there, we often will construct a scene that will happen in person. And it doesn't always have to happen in person, but it can. And these scenes, we call it transformational kink because it can be inclusive of kink and BDSM, and because this work is kind of generally in the realm of the taboo inherently. And it's open and available to explore some of those things. But I've also had sessions where I am simply holding somebody and kind of being the motherly presence that they never had, the loving mother, or I'm a teacher guiding them to learn how to fly. You know, there's all sorts of things that can happen, as well as stepping into the more traditional, maybe dominatrix role, or the powerful femme that is teaching a lesson or disciplining, or providing a ritual experience, or really it can be almost anything. The options are limitless. But again, the intention is what matters. So while there might be eros, there might be sexual play, there might be orgasm even, that's not the point. The point is to aid this transformation that's happening for this person, and to help that happen. And this works again on, you can think of it in a spiritual level. Okay, I'm meeting my guides, I'm connecting with God, goddess, I'm connecting to my own inner divinity, but also on a very practical scientific level. When we powerfully imagine something, we're actually working on the limbic system of the brain, the kind of emotional system. And that doesn't communicate in words and language or thought. It communicates in sensation, movement, image. So it needs, by doing that kind of work, even the inner journeys, or in the outward expression through the in-person sessions, we actually can rewire the brain. Like it can change. It's not just a fun experience. So, and BDSM kink scenes can be transformational on their own. Oftentimes people will find themselves just in a heavy scene and suddenly they're having this kundalini awakening, or they're sent back to a time in their past and they're healing a trauma. And that can happen. But with transformational kink, that's the intention. That's why we're there, why we're in the room. That's a general
Thank you so much
overview.
for sharing all of these codes around transformational kink and sex magic. And there's so much that I'm digesting from everything you just shared. But I'm really seeing now that transformational kink is another edge, is another face of what sex magic is. Like, it's sexual magic, right? And I think that my perception of sex magic has been limited to that traditional way of viewing it, with this pleasure practice with a partner or yourself. But indeed, sexual magic can be any time that we're harnessing our sexual eros, erotic energy, and with intention and purpose to transform, to manifest, to release, to heal, whatever. And then there's the alchemy that comes with that. And so, yeah, I just absolutely love the way that you're explaining this around using kink in this really profound and intentional and spiritual way that can be just as effective as, these other types of sex magic practices that we're maybe more used to hearing about in the mainstream. Totally. And my brain is already, because that's the thing with sex magic, right, is that we're also tapping into the subconscious, and we're able to rewire our brain to associate this vision, to associate this manifestation or whatever it is that we want, with a pleasurable state in our bodies versus a fear state. And that's where that brain alchemy comes in that type of a sex magic. So it sounds really similar with transformational kink, where you are able to rewire the brain through being in a pleasureful state in the body. It's like the body holds the information. And when we can shift the way that our body is feeling when we're tapping into a certain thought in our minds or visualization, then that feels like the alchemy, when we're able to bring that pleasure in the body at the same time as the vision in the mind. Then
Absolutely.
this whole new landscape of possibilities opens up for us in the reality that we're experiencing outside of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that share. Yeah, I love that share, Alfina. Thank you. And my consciousness is expanding around the concept of sex magic too. So we're just so grateful to have you here, because I too had this very limited, narrow perspective, which is now opening in such a beautiful way. And my question that was coming through when you were sharing, Alfina, was the connection between pleasure and sex magic and it having to be pleasurable, because I've had a personal experience, and this question's directed towards you, Kelly, where I encountered a man named Spanky, who was this world-renowned spanking artist who actually would use the intensity of essentially pain and discomfort, and he would hit certain meridian points on the body in order to like heal a certain wound. So that's coming from this opposite kind of spectrum, and I'm curious if you can also use like discomfort and pain to also transmute energy and play in the realms of sex magic, because like we're in a duality. So like I want to get into the shadow side of things and see what that looks like from your perspective.
Yeah. Thank
Cool
you. Thank you for
question.
that. That's a really important point. Yee. Yeah. So pleasure and pain. Let's talk about that. So one of the ideas about kink is that pain can be pleasurable, and we can get to a point with it where, especially if we're really with it and kind of using our meditative practices and ideas to feel it and let it in, and okay, this is just sensation, and can I really let it take me somewhere, that it can, some people experience that very readily as the same thing, some people don't, but either way it's heightening energy within the body, and that's the most important part, is that more energy is flowing. So with transformational kink, there's actually kind of two main pathways that we can go with any scene, and that's the pathway of love and the pathway of challenge or the ordeal. And so the challenge or the ordeal would be, trafficking more in the realm of pain or discomfort, challenging situations that might be reliving a traumatic experience that was painful at the time, kind of recreating it as much as you can and reclaiming power in that moment when you didn't reclaim power at that time. Or it might be bringing love to a similar situation so that you can feel like that nutrient, that nourishment of love where you couldn't and didn't feel it before. So either way, but yeah, again, the realm of kink, and a lot of people are attracted to transformational kink as a healing practice because maybe they already have a kink practice. It's already part of the things that they like to experience. And even if people don't, there's, I believe it's for everybody. And I believe there can be healing on either of those pathways. And it really depends on the person. There's a lot of choice in how they want to experience the healing. Sometimes maybe we go through with love and then kind of go again with challenge. But yeah, the pain that can come from more traditional BDSM practices, bondage or impact play, or piercing, anything like that, can heighten the energy in the body, can bring you to that really present state. When you're in pain, you are there. You are not thinking about your to-do list. You're not, you are like, the pain can be all consuming sometimes. And that's the state that we're trying to get to and to stay really present in, and with the help of this facilitator can kind of help hold that for the person going through the experience, or the supplicant, as we like to say. So we have the divine dominant and the sacred supplicant. And yeah, pain can be just as much of a transformational pathway. And then again, they also can kind of meld together. Suddenly what was just painful feels intensely pleasurable. And that's just that alchemy that can happen within the body on this really physical level.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I was working out the other day, and it was a really intense ass workout. Like, she was bringing us to the brink of our capacity. And I was like, I think I'm going to die in this class. And something happened in the midst of like what I was describing as pain, where I started to tap into the sensation. I was like, it kind of feels like pleasure. And there was something that shifted where I went from like, oh, to like, oh, and then like just essentially just feeling this pressure, this tension, this energy build without attachment, without even attachment to it really being like in pleasure and pain, just noticing that I was enjoying it. Like that was the key into like that immediate kind of transformation in the moment. And as you were saying, yeah, I imagine like we can bring these spaces to the space of play. And I have a theory that when people are diving into like the BDSM world, that they're really there to heal, whether they know it or not. Like it's like, you know, like the strongest pillar to our healing is through our most potent source of creative life force, which is our sexuality. So I believe that this work is the most potent direct line to healing. And
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. I love that. I would agree with you on that theory for sure. That
Mm.
reminds me that, you know, as children, we experience a lot of these things that, you know, sadness, grief, we experience raw emotion, especially really small children. And it's just emotion. It's there, it's energy, it moves through. We can be crying in one moment, laughing in the next moment. We don't attach a lot of story to it. One story that I love was of someone who was having a birthday party for their 5-year-old, and the 5-year-old wanted a disgusting themed birthday party. And so they had all these like disgusting things, and it was really grossing the adults out. And the kids were like, ew, ew, but they were like having so much fun with it. It had that sensation of disgust hadn't been laden with all of this like social taboo, all of the story that we put on it. If I'm experiencing something gross, then I'm gross. You know, they're just like experiencing the pleasure of that sensation. And I feel like the same can be true, you know, for a painful sensation. And our minds create so much of the story, and that really can be where the resistance is. It's not even necessarily, oh, my body doesn't want to feel this. It's the story that have created around what this means that I can actually examine and create a new one. I have some choice in that. So I feel that that's a big lesson of BDSM and working out hard. There's so many ways that we can get to this state, whether, you know, runners experience a similar kind of high, like, oh, it's so hard, and then suddenly they have a lot of energy. Or think about spiritual practices like the sun dance, where they literally will hook strings into their skin and run around without eating or drinking until it breaks, to have this spiritual experience. And it's a lot like BDSM, you know. There's a lot of overlap between really old, ancient spiritual traditions and BDSM in almost every religion that I've dove into.
That's so fascinating. Yeah, I remember when I was on a medicine journey and an ayahuasca journey, and I'd been up all night, just deep purge, like the deepest medicine journey I've ever been on. And every part of me was tired and achy and sore. And I just wanted to complain. And the shamana just kept saying, you know, say thank you, say gracias. And I was just, okay, gracias, gracias, gracias. And just by saying those words and my body and my brain hearing that gratitude shift, it was the craziest experience, night and day. Everything that I was feeling, all these sensations that I was labeling as negative and painful and uncomfortable, shifted and opened to this most pleasurable, ecstatic, energized place in my body. And then I was riding that wave, that current of pleasure the rest of the day, just in that moment. So there is also something to be said for, yeah, how we're labeling it and how we're actually talking to ourselves about it, not just the stories in our head, but viscerally sharing, you know, just telling our bodies these things out loud, because it is responding at a quantum level. And since you're a doctor, I'm not sure what you have your doctorate degree in, but I know you're very intelligent, and I would love to know more around the science of that, like the science of sensations, because my theory is that everything is just a sensation, it's neutral. And then the stories that we prescribe to the sensations and that say out loud create more of an impact reality of what we're experiencing. And I would love to know more about the science at a quantum level and whatever else you know that maybe could back this up a little bit more for listeners.
Yeah, like are pain and pleasure a societal construct? Like, let's go. This is good.
Yeah. Just to be clear, my PhD is in dance studies, so I kind of did anthropological work, and I studied sensation and embodiment, so this is part of it. But certainly I won't have as many of the sciencey words, but yeah. So pain and pleasure. One thing I learned recently was that we're the only creatures that we know of so far on Earth that will experience something painful and then might move toward it again. So there's been studies where they'll have animals where they can train them to endure something painful if there's a reward after, but humans don't have the same. We have more maybe conscious awareness. We have story. We have things that can help us interpret whatever the pain is that we're experiencing and know that it's not a mortal danger and stay with it if we feel that it's good for us or we're getting something out of it. Or sometimes it's maybe a self, what's the right word? It's kind of undercutting ourselves in some way, or we're subconsciously or consciously trying to hurt ourselves. But we're
like
the only creatures that self-sabotage. There you go. That's the word. What is the word? Yeah. So we're the only creatures that will do that. And I find that really interesting. And I don't know a lot about what in us does that, except it feels like it's something about being able to hold meaning and have an understanding of what is actually going to kill us or hurt us and what won't. And whereas animals are like, oh, that hurt, I'm never going over there again. I've learned that lesson, most other animals. So yeah, our pain and pleasure are societal construct. On some level, yes. On some level, everything is just sensation. And it's, the Buddhists would say that our habit is to move towards things that feel good and to move away from things that feel bad, aversion and attraction. But all of that is connected to the stories that we've created around it. I mean, sometimes during sex, I don't know if you've experienced this with like really deep intercourse or something like that. It's like it can feel so intense and it's like painful, but it also feels really good. It's like this that they go together. It's both. And I feel like that's the merging. And if the more we can really just be in curiosity of okay, what is the sensation, and kind of, I mean, the science might be to think about quieting the mind, coming to a more equanimous view, a more equanimous way of being when we're experiencing even big fluctuations in pain and pleasure, that we can really see it in its neutrality. This is just a tingly sensation. This is a sharp sensation. And of course, our body will kick in if we're about to break a bone or about to cut ourselves or something like that, and really injure ourselves. But in general, I would say, yeah, that pain and pleasure are useful guides for our bodies, especially as we're learning to navigate the world. And we overlay a lot of story and meaning on top of it that we can let go of.
Yeah, the overlaying of story, that's so interesting. And I remember as you were sharing all of this, when I first sat with Combo when I was living in California, the practitioner, I mean, I was terrified because I just thought it was going to hurt, right? And at that point in my consciousness, I had like a deep fear of pain and I resisted it. I was like, no, I don't want to go there. And I was like, is it going to hurt? And she was like, I invite you to pretend for the next hour that like pain, pleasure doesn't exist and that all you're going to experience are small sensations and big sensations. And and it really started to rewire my neural pathway to start to meet these moments with grace and with curiosity, as opposed to being like, that's pain, that's pleasure, and kind of start to soften the duality. I have a personal desire to dive more into the science behind this. And it sounds like you do too, Elf. So like, we'll have a nice scientific session after this, but I would love to circle back to sex magic if you're open to it. And something that came through is I hear the importance of intention when we're dancing with sex magic. But if we don't have an intention and I'm just like masturbating, but I'm thinking of someone that I like want to be with me, is that still sex magic? Like, is the specific intention necessary in order to anchor it into the field? Or like, are we always performing sex magic no matter what?
Great question. I would say that because we're accessing that field, because we're accessing the kind of higher state of consciousness, a more embodied, a more holistic state of consciousness, that we are doing something, especially, if our thought is there. But, without really setting that intention and putting that clearly in the field, it might be more of like a staticky signal. So there's something about letting it like pierce the veil, being super clear in yourself on what it is, letting yourself feel the sensations of having that thing or that thing happening, or more fully, rather than just like thinking about somebody. But I do think that we're weaving spells, even if it's mostly within our own field, of every time that we are self-pleasuring, because we're establishing pathways. Sometimes we can get into, okay, I need to think about this fantasy in order to orgasm, in order to get aroused, or and those types of things cast spells within our own being and with our own subconscious. So I think it's important to not to censor our fantasies or anything like that, but to understand and to spend some time being intentional with what's kind of going in our mind, especially before and after pleasure. I feel like when you're in the pleasure itself, my guidance for people is to really just let yourself be in the pleasure and be in the moment, and not be worrying too much about the intention even, or the prayer, or, okay, what is this doing for my quantum field? But really just let yourself follow that. But before and afterwards is when you can really focus in that intention. And like drawing, I sometimes will draw like a sigil and then burn it afterwards as a symbol that I can kind of hold in my mind, so I don't have to hold all of the, okay, and then I'm gonna make $1 million, and then I'm gonna have the partner of my dreams. I don't have to hold all that. I can like let that be in a symbol, and that can be the thing that penetrates the field. But yeah, I think on some level we're doing it, and the more specific and the more clear you can be in the intention, the more powerful it will be. Otherwise, my experience of self-pleasuring before I knew about sex magic was kind of more in this scattered realm, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't really allow for the, hey universe, here's what I'm calling for, here's what I'm calling in, and for that to then be met in a very clear and magnetic way.
Yeah, it's like anything we're doing, the clearer, more intentional we are, then that's what's going to be reverberated back to us. And I am really curious about your experience practicing sex magic in whatever form with another person, with a partner, let's say with a partner, not just like a client relationship, because I've been in my own self-pleasure sex magic practice for a while now, and I feel really comfortable and confident in that process. And then bringing in a partner, right? Bringing in someone else, it's a whole nother ball game. And I am just curious to hear what advice, or maybe even like a quick step-by-step guide of how that scene might look, and the steps that might need to be taken look to practice with another person.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, it's also a relatively new field for me to be practicing with a partner kind of in my own personal life. Most of my sex magic has been solo up until just a few months ago, really. A little bit of dabbling, but before I really knew what I was doing. So,
Perfect
to work
timing,
with a
then.
partner.
You just initiated into this.
Yeah. So the working with a partner, I would say the first step would be to set a space, a ritual space. So whether that's as simple as lighting a candle, lighting incense, lowering the lights, making the bed really nice. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to have, the elaborate altar that I have behind me. You don't need to have anything special, but something to separate what was happening before to what was happening now, and to set it as a sacred ritual space that can do so much for our minds and bodies to really just be able to drop in. So it can be really simple. And then taking some time to set the intention together. I like to start with just sitting across from one another, looking left eye to left eye, just gazing into each other's eyes. Actually, first lowering the eyes and breathing for yourself, taking a few deep breaths, the in through the nose and twice as long out through the mouth and a few rounds of that will help us drop us into the parasympathetic nervous system, so that we know all is well, we're safe, we're resting and digesting, so we can kind of quiet the sympathetic or the fight or flight response. So we get into that calm state of being ourselves, we attune to ourselves. I like to just kind of identify as one sensation I'm feeling, or do something else that really helps me be like, okay, I'm here, I'm attuned to myself. And then we can open our eyes and gaze left eye to left eye and attune to the other, which really, again, starts with attuning to oneself. Taking a few breaths. I've tried different things, whether you're breathing at the same time or one person is inhaling as the other person is exhaling, and you're kind of creating that circuit together. I think both are powerful, and sometimes we can get tripped up on trying to sync up too much if we're like, like we're in a big breathing. So like kind of letting that happen, and not getting too wrapped up in it being perfect. But breathing together for a few moments, simply just allowing yourself to be seen and seeing your partner. And then taking a few moments to share what's going on in my body, what's going on in yours, why are we here? And then getting clear on a shared intention. So something that you both are going to hold together. And that's really important. While you might have different kind of reflections, or it might mean something slightly different to you, but just getting really clear on what is it that we're here to cultivate together. Because if you think about, especially when you have the power of two people, regardless of gender, we have the power of polarity. And that's an important piece of this. And it can be played with. You can kind of heighten that polarity and the masculine and feminine difference, or you can decrease it. But there's something about kind of this divine masculine, divine feminine that helps create some wholeness for the container. So being clear on kind of who's holding the masculine, who's holding the feminine for our time together in that moment
just
as well.
to time out on that one, like if you are, more androgynous, or you're in like a homosexual relationship, or you just don't want to be in one role, like, is that still possible to practice sex magic then and be in the polarity?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I would say that, do what feels right for you, but again, it doesn't matter what gender you are, or how you express, or how you relate, but for that, if it feels good for this ritual, okay, I'm gonna hold the more we could say active role, and you're gonna hold the more passive, or I'm gonna hold the more container holding, and you're gonna hold the more expressive role. So there's ways of masculine and feminine is just kind of a heuristic, or words that we can use to encapsulate the broad range of that polarity, but it definitely doesn't have to align with gender, power. It's more about creating a flow of energy between you, because if you both are in the same frequency, that can work. And again, if that feels right and it feels potent, then that's really great. But there's sometimes where kind of being clear about, okay, I get to just surrender in this time, and they're going to take on the more active role, or vice versa, helps us get to deeper states, because we're clear about kind of what role we're each holding in for that time. And it doesn't have to be outside of that container. It doesn't have to be every time you do sex magic, you can hold different roles. And that can mean different things for different times, whether you're doing penetrative sex or not, or something kinky or not. So But
Yeah,
again, if it makes sense to
that
just kind
makes
of be in
sense.
your natural flow, then that's great too. And you're still
Yeah,
raising erotic
that
energy.
makes sense. And just the final thing, but I don't want
Yeah,
to keep interrupting you, but just the
sure.
final thing around that is too, like, I find that my partner and I really like to switch. So like we'll switch, like, okay, we're in this role now, but then maybe halfway through we switch to this other role. So there's
Yeah,
also like variation within that role, within that, even within that practice, I believe too.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's really what helps the energy flow more clearly and more fully and amplify the energy. Um,
Okay.
I'm kind of thinking about like two people just kind of like snuggling together and like being in more the oxytocin, like, and it's like there's nothing wrong with that. That's really beautiful. And it doesn't allow for the same kind of amplification of the energy that a more polarized dynamic would.
Mhm.
And that can look in so many different ways. And yeah, I love the idea of switching. I've had experiences where it's like I've been so much in my surrender and it's like I feel like my body is just mush and can't do anything. And then suddenly like this rise of energy and activity will come, and then the polarity will switch. But it just naturally happens. And you can also intentionally be like, okay, it's 30 minutes, we're going to switch now. That can happen too. But the clarity of roles can be really freeing. It can help us know, okay, this is how I'm going to show up right now, and this is my um, how I can best serve our shared
Mhm.
container.
Mhm.
So getting clear on how you want to do that, and again, it can be all sorts of different things. Especially if it's somebody that you're just getting used to or just starting with sex magic with, you might want to talk about what's on the table and what's not on the table in terms of what activities we're going to be doing, boundaries, desires, all those nice things that we generally like to talk about to make sure we have consent and are kind of on the same page with what's going to happen during the time together during the ritual. And then sometimes I'll draw a sigil, or we'll draw one together, something that maybe we'll each draw our own, or we'll draw one together that's going to encapsulate our intention, whatever this thing is that we're praying for, that we're manifesting. And we put that somewhere where we can see it during our time. And then you kind of go into it however you want to go into it. Sometimes I like to start in Yab Yum, where the one person is sitting kind of straddling the other, holding and breathing. That's really where that circuit breath can start to come in, with one person exhaling as the other is inhaling. You can start to feel that come through one another. Allow yourselves to touch and feel good, and play and be in your Eros. Maybe the role that you're in allows you to find some other parts of yourself, or different ways of expressing, different modes of being. You might find like different kind of characters come out, different archetypes. So following the current, really very important. And then if there is an orgasm or some kind of peak or multiple orgasms, that's a time to really like feel the energy, to feel if you have a sigil or other symbol of what your intention is, to feel that going out in all directions, all around you, out into the field, sending it out like a prayer. And you're also releasing it. You're letting go of attachment to it. You're saying, this is my prayer, and I trust the universe to have it show up for me however it's going to, and I'm not attached to what that looks like. I'm not attached to the timing. I'm simply letting it go, and I'm sending that energy up and out and down, down and into the earth as well. So you can kind of take some time with your orgasm and after orgasm, or after any kind of peak, to really see that and feel that dissipating out. Oftentimes I like, and I think it can be really potent to consume any fluids that came, if there was
Mhm.
ejaculation, or to share that, to mix them together, because that's part of that, like um, the alchemy that can happen between two or more people. And it's almost like the fertilization, the fertilization of the seed. So you let, maybe there's blood, maybe there's juices from both of you, saliva, anything, kind of mixing them together. Um, and then sometimes I'll put that on the sigil itself, kind of decorate the sigil with that. And then after the ritual, I'll burn that, and then release the fluids back into the earth, or consume them. Consuming them can be a really, again, potent way of kind of bringing it back into your body and fertilizing the seed within you. So again, whether you're doing that solo or with somebody, consuming the fluids is a generally advised for sex
Dr.
magic.
Kelly told me to consume the fluids.
Doctor said swallow.
Yes,
told you
queen.
to drink it. I love
Wow,
it.
I
Yeah.
would have never known you just started doing this practice. It sounds like you've been doing this your whole life. I mean, perhaps many lifetimes.
I think it's one of those things that, yeah, we all have access to, right? It's really deep in our ancestry, and in our bones and ways of being. I feel like it's so natural in a lot of ways. I'm trying to think if I've missed anything. So orgasm maybe has happened. Then, you do any aftercare or cuddling, kind of bringing the energy back down, burning the sigil if you've made one, or some other kind of symbolic, consuming of the fluids, or blowing out the candle, kind of closing the space. One thing that I didn't mention that sometimes that resonates with some people is at the beginning to call in any guides, ancestors, being spirits, archetypes that you want to kind of help hold the energy. Say if you were calling in more pleasure in your life or more love, maybe you would call in Mary Magdalene, or more connection to the earth, maybe Mother Gaia. So there's ways that you can kind of have your guides surrounding you, and then when you're done, releasing them, letting them go.
Yeah, and another prayer that I was told about too through Layla Martin, is this prayer for, may my prayers manifest only in accordance with the highest good of all beings. Kind of a generalized prayer that we're not using the sex magic to manipulate others in a destructive way at the cost of someone else's safety or health or well-being, but that our prayers are amplifying and bettering the world around us. So just to really stay in the integrity, because that's also, I feel, a shadow side of sex magic, using sex magic in ways that could be also destructive. So that's just a way to make sure it stays in that integral light space. And then something else I want to reflect on that you said too is letting the orgasm, letting the energetic, whether it's energetic or physical or whatever it is, peak pleasure, out throughout our whole bodies, even down into the earth. Because I kind of had been in this thought that the sex magic, it's this linear breathing up all of your chakras, and then finally you bring it to the crown, and when you have it in the crown, then you release it out through your crown. But I really also love this inclusivity of how we can send it to all chakras and all parts of the body and back into the earth. And I think that allows me to soften and relax more in the experience, because sometimes I get in my mind of, okay, well, now we have to keep breathing it up, and I don't want to lose this. It's here now, and I can't go back down here too much, And so that I feel like will help me to soften in my practice and just allow it to move through the whole body wherever it wants to go.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, you're just a wealth of wisdom. Really grateful for you on our show today.
Yeah, you're magic. I would love to condense this, like, just to reiterate what you shared. And I love the drinking the sacred fluids as well. I have it embodied in me, and then also our listeners will be able to hear the process. So if I miss anything along the way, I'm just going to try to reiterate the steps that you shared around sex magic. I feel like this is a test.
And also just to put a little colon on this or whatever, is that you don't have to do all the ritual steps for the sex magic to work. Like Kelly was saying, this is just one way of doing it, a more ritualistic way if you really want to go all in with the ritual, which we love rituals. And don't let this also detour you from trying to practice sex magic if this feels like a lot. I said that last time, and I'm going to say it again because it just feels really important to reiterate. So yeah, but continue, Heather.
Oh, I'm
Continue.
so grateful for that PSA. Please tailor this according to like what you're feeling. Trust your inner oracle, trust your channel, trust your intuition, trust like what you're building with your partner, and like make this work for you in a way that feels good. But from what you shared, Kelly, first step is connection to self, internal breath. Second step, to connect the masculine and the feminine, whether eye gazing or through your own practice that feels good. Then
Setting the space, setting the space,
setting the
number
space. I
one.
already missed
Setting the
something. Okay,
space.
you do it. I feel like I should have written it down. Okay. Setting space.
Good
Setting
thing
the
this will
Yay.
be
space.
recorded.
I know.
This is recorded. Don't worry.
Can you reiterate it? I feel like I already am losing it
No,
right
no,
now.
no. Go
You
ahead.
got
You
it.
have it.
You got it, Heather.
Okay. Okay. Setting space, connection to self, connection to the masculine, feminine energies, connected breath with your partner or lover, setting an intention in that moment, and or creating a sigil, something that feels like a culmination of the energy that you want to cultivate together. Then moving into the practice in a way that feels organic. Then letting go of the intention at that point and moving into the pleasure and really focusing on the pleasure, allowing that to build. And then upon the mountaintop of peak pleasure, releasing and bringing back, really simultaneously releasing and bringing back this desired manifestation and sending it out to God, the universe, to the divine, to then like essentially be a seed that's like planted in the fertile soil of the universe. And then aftercare and taking the sacred fluid. You could take your sacred fluids and drink them, which I love. Like that's epic. And then releasing it and just trusting that it's going to come just like you did.
I knew you were
Exactly.
gonna say that.
I love that. Yes, absolutely. Nailed it.
And is there
Nailed it.
something to
Nailed it.
say about holding that frequency of the manifestation after the ritual is over, like holding that with your partner as long as you can to help support that?
I don't think there's any as long as you can necessarily, but like in that moment after orgasm, taking whatever feels right of like, okay, I'm in that energy. This is the prayer, seeing it get sent out. And then the release is just as important. Because sometimes we can get stuck in, here's what I need it to look like. But the universe doesn't really work that way. And the clearer we can be on like what it is we want to feel and the what of what we're trying to manifest rather than the how, that it works in really mysterious and mystical ways. So the releasing attachment again to like what that might look like. So it's not necessarily about like doing your concentration meditation on that thing for as long as possible. It's more like bringing that into your body and self, sending it out and letting that fertilize the field around you. And I like to kind of see it going out as little messages and like feeling the things getting magnetized back in and feeling kind of that outward energy, and then what's coming back and like, ooh, what's it gonna be? And getting curious and like staying open. I would say it's more about kind of being in an open state of being than like disciplined focus on the thing itself.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's the bow, that's the cherry on top of this incredible episode. I'm sure we could just keep talking forever. And I just want to give our listeners a chance to connect with you more and all the incredible projects and offerings that you have in the world. And please just share with the listeners what it is that you would like to share about all of that. And then we'll also link all of this in the show notes too, so you guys can connect with Kelly more.
Yeah, well, the first exciting thing is the Magdalene Remembered film, which is preparing for a Hawaii tour in these next few months. And then ideally, that will expand to the States and beyond. So you can check out a little bit about that at holyerotica.org. We have a very new Instagram that's Magdalene Remembered, at Magdalene Remembered. you want to check out a little bit about the film there or connect about the film. And I'll just speak a little bit about the film. It's a eco-erotic, eco-holy erotic self-pleasure scene that is a transmission of the Magdalene codes. So it's not necessarily telling a story about Mary Magdalene herself, but it's a transmission of anchoring in what she stood for, which was embodiment, connection with the earth, divine love, divine union. She's kind of I think of her as the feminine Christ. We have Jesus and Mary, who together have this really beautiful message for the world, message of love. And through the patriarchy, her story has been kind of split off, she has been split as a figure. The Mary has been split into this virgin and whore kind of dichotomy. So there's a reclaiming of the feminine side of Christ consciousness, the feminine Christ, and which can be more, think about specifically in a Christian context, but also in a just broad human context of divine masculine and feminine. So it's a reclaiming of the spirituality of our bodies, the divinity of our bodies and the earth, and our pleasure through the codes of the Magdalene line, which is really connected to Isis. So it's a really beautiful film. I'm very proud of it. And it is a self-pleasure scene. It is erotic, but it's also I would say, it's not objectifying. It's very subjectifying. There's a lot of beautiful earth imagery. There's a lot there. So the film you can't see.
It's so beautiful. It is so stunning. I went to both of the screenings and #1 fan. It's just, growing up in a really Christian household, it really helped me to re-sanctify sexuality. It's like bringing the holiness and sacredness to our sexuality, to our self-pleasure, to the body, to the earth. It's just such a spectacular film. Like, I will shout it from the rooftops. Please be a part of this movie. Go see it. Be a part of supporting this mission and this vision. And yeah, it is just a transmission. Like you said, just watching it, you're receiving the codes. And it's just so spectacularly edited and also filmed. And your guys' filmmaker is amazing too. So yeah, please go check this out. It's incredible. I absolutely love this project so much. And Lauren's writing too, the writing in there, the poetry in there. It's all just so gorgeous.
So beautiful. Yeah, so it's not available to see yet online, but we are open to, if you have a women's group or men's group or any other kind of group that you'd want to bring it to, we can share it with you that way. And it will, soon will be more accessible. So reach out, let us know if you're interested or want to share it with your group, or if you have a place that you want us to come show it. We're envisioning and creating kind of a whole series of programs around the film. The film's only 20 minutes long, but we're all coaches and sacred sexual healers, and I hold temple space, like sacred play parties. So we're creating some programming that can go along with the film as we tour and bring it new places. So reach out if it's something that speaks to you. holyerotica.org or Magdalene Remembered on Instagram. And I love working with people one-on-one. That's primarily what I do as a somatic intimacy and relationship coach and transformational kink practitioner. So if either of those things are things you're interested in, you can go to intimocoaching.com or kellykleinphd.com. If you're looking for something a little more on the sexy side, my priestess name is Dr. Rebel Bell, the Divinatrix, and I have the divinatrix.com. So kind of can show up in both energy as Kelly and as Revel, and I love how they dance together. So yeah, if you're looking for if you're wanting to heal shame, especially from religious trauma, it's a big focus of mine, religious or other cultural trauma, indoctrination, and wanting to help come more into your sexual sovereignty and liberate that energy and release yourself of the shame that you've learned. That's something I can definitely support you in. Or if you're looking to just improve your relationship, or call in a relationship or get to know what you like sexually, that's other things that I can support you with. So please reach out. And I would love to be part of your journey.
It's been such an honor. Thank you so much for the work that you do in the world. Your Dharma is so needed on this planet right now. And you're just such an emanation of that embodiment that you share, and that pleasure, and that yeah, just like this Christ consciousness in a woman form, which is so activating just to be around. Yeah, I'm really inspired by you. So thank you again for taking time out of your busy life to be here with us today. I'm sure Heather has something to say too. Yeah, we're really honored though to have you here. Thank you.
Yeah, short and sweet. Just deeply grateful to have you here and have been able to connect with your energy and receive your codes and your love. And my heart's feeling really activated. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Alfina. Thank you, Heather. Thank you to the SISociety podcast and Taboo Talks. Really happy to have gotten this time to share with you all and to bounce ideas off of each other. And thank you for your questions and reflections. Yay.
Yeah, and thank you each and every one of you for tuning in and being a part of this. We wouldn't be here without you guys, truly. And if you really enjoyed today's conversation with Kelly, we have a whole profile with all sorts of juicy conversations on different taboo subjects. You can follow us on Instagram at SISociety.world, or follow Taboo Talks on YouTube by SISociety. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Please share this episode with anyone that you might find resonance with, and subscribe, because all of these things really have a tremendous impact on our ability to expand and really reach the masses, like our mission is. So join us next week for another episode, and we'll catch you then. Thanks so much.